The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome. It is Wednesday, April 3rd. So thrilled to be here. As you know, Wednesday is a very exciting day for us here on Autism Live because we have an opportunity to ask questions of a brilliant expert, a true visionary in the field of autism, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. So we're going to be starting that segment in just a few minutes. We call it Ask Dr. Doreen. Now is a great time for you to be asking questions. Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways you can get a hold of us here and some of the different ways that you can watch the show. I want to remind you that the only way you can watch us live is by going to www.autism-live.com. When you go there, there is a feature that you can put your cursor in the box that says questions we're answering right now. Hit enter after you've typed something in and it shows up magically right here on the screen and I can ask Dr. Granpeesheh your questions in real time. Wonderful feature. It does not cost anything. We don't ask for any of your personal information. You don't have to put a credit card down. There is no login. Isn't that a lovely thing? We hope that you'll take advantage of it because how often do you get this opportunity? Actually, you get it every Wednesday, which is a thrill. Lots of things that we're going to be covering later on the show, but we'll cover some of those and let you know more about that as the show progresses. I give you a little hint, though, that Ariva Martin from Special Needs Network is going to be joining with us in the Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy hour. Okay, without further ado, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh with us.
Morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
It is always my pleasure because we learn so much here in this hour from the questions that you guys ask and your wonderful, wonderful answers. We want to remind everybody at the beginning here, though, that the questions that we ask and the questions that you guys ask, you'll only be giving us some general information, not child-specific information. We never want to confuse things to let people think that anything is child-specific. You couldn't possibly. Our kids are too individual, and the questions that you guys send in, while you can be as specific as possible, there's still no way for you to give real child-specific advice.
That's right, and I wouldn't want to because we don't want to do injustice to any one child out there.
Absolutely.
So just keep that in mind as we're responding.
But the truth is that when you guys write in, we learn so much from the different, because you talk about a lot of different things. You're very thorough when you answer questions. I just love it. It usually brings up more questions for me.
Yeah, no, and I love sometimes our viewers are just responding right on the spot.
Yes.
And that's always great because the more detail we get, the more we can go to the actual issue.
Absolutely. So I want to start with a question that we had last week right at the very end of the program that I promised that we would get to about a picky eater. So they write in and say, "Hi, Dr. Doreen. My son, aged 9.5 years now, was a very picky eater from 1 year until 4 years. We put him on a GFCF diet for 2 years and then added that back. Now he is eating so well. He had constipation till 6 years and now is completely fine without any meds. Apart from this, he has had no other gut issues. All along, I encouraged him trying new textures, eating more, etc. However, now he tends to overeat and is slightly overweight. He keeps asking for more, and when he is really full, he does not stop. I have this problem.
We all do.
However, I have a feeling that he still overeats. Any tips would be greatly appreciated. I'll be taking notes too. I am considering testing him for diabetes or thyroid or anything else, but his pediatrician keeps telling that it cannot be diabetes as he is gaining weight and he is just being less active and eating more. Please let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much. And I miscalled it a picky eater. And I make light, but it's a very serious issue when our kids start to overeat and put on more weight.
It is, because it's very difficult to address it with them. Now, unfortunately, I just don't know the level of functioning of this child and how much you can kind of explain things to the child. But, first of all, when we eat too much, so we're past the kind of picky eating phase, so we're not really going to go into that whole question or area of feeding, but it seems like this child is using food as a reinforcer, obviously, and many of us do, but
I'll raise my hand.
But overeating, I think, if I was to just kind of analyze it quickly on the spot right now, I'd say it's a combination of using it too much as a reinforcer and then it becoming a habit. So let's try to see if we can break both of those in this case. So using it as a reinforcer basically means that he needs other areas that are more reinforcing. So you have to find other things that are more rewarding to the child and try to increase those in the child's schedule or life. And make sure they're available, and so that he can turn to those instead of just the taste of food. Then in terms of trying to break the habit, I would say, well, there's a million different techniques you can use for this, but depending on the level of functioning of the child, here are some ideas, I guess. So you limit the time at the meal. So if there's a buzzer or something and it goes off, then after that nobody's eating. You have to be careful with that because sometimes our kids or anyone would tend to speed up, and if they speed up in order to finish what's on the plate, and then that is not going to have any positive effect, so that won't work. But if you can, just what happens is people sit around a table for a long time and then they just keep eating whatever's on the table. So another way to limit that, other than setting a time on it, is just to limit what's in his plate. And basically, those are the only things that you can eat, what's in your plate, and then the overeating doesn't happen. Obviously, the overeating could also happen during outside of meal times, and I think the healthiest thing to do, and I have a few lessons as I'm saying this for my own kids, but the healthiest thing to do is to only allow snacks at specific hours. I mean, generally speaking, Shannon, what I've learned nutrition-wise is that the healthiest thing you can do is to eat approximately every 3 hours.
Okay.
So, and of course, the ones in between the main meals are supposed to be slightly smaller, but they don't really have to be. You're supposed to eat 6 times a day small meals, but we've kind of made that into 3 because we don't have time.
Right.
But, if it was possible for this child to maybe make a chart of, your breakfast, and these are the things that are allowed, snack, and then lunch, and snack, and then dinner. It's kind of important to do that because most of our kids enjoy and appreciate some sort of regulation, so like a chart, a list, rules, things about like what you can eat and what you can't eat.
Right.
And those types of things might help because then, once you hit let's say you have the breakfast and you have the snack, then you want to make sure the end of every meal, the other reinforcer is available so that we're able to so he's able to switch over over.
Right.
Again, I just don't know the functioning level, because if your child's high functioning enough, at a point you can simply just go into nutritional facts and explain to the child that you need to have, this much protein and this much carbohydrates, and these other things can be added to it. But it is a very hard thing with kids. And, we say increasing physical activity will balance things out, but the truth is increasing physical activity really only just balances the weight. Physical activity is great, but overeating itself can have serious side effects, like, as you mentioned, diabetes and other issues too.
Absolutely. And it really, it strikes me, because now that I'm thinking about it, this is the exact same age that my child is. Mm-hmm. And it's been interesting to me in the last couple of months. We tend to cycle at different times of the year where my child is a bottomless pit. Mm-hmm. He just is hungry all of the time. And, I sort of feel like a hypocrite, because I'm trying to give him the best possible healthy choices. I don't always make the healthiest choices for myself, but one of the things that I've noticed is that he'll go through a period where he's a bottomless pit, and then we have a period where he shoots up, where he literally two sizes he grew in the last month.
Right, and I'm so glad you said that, because I assumed, and I wrongfully did assume, that this is a child who's overweight, and that's why mom is concerned.
I don't know. She says she's concerned about that. I don't think you wrongly assumed anything. But
the truth is, you have to be aware of those growth spurts, and it's very, very common with kids where they will eat, and then suddenly get taller, and it all balances out again. My kids went through that multiple times. But at the same time, I just think that, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that we tend to give a lot of love through food to our kids.
Yes.
And that's something we have to be very cautious of.
Yeah. And what I was going to continue to say is that he did shoot up, but I was concerned because he was just wanting to eat so much. And just this last weekend, for our, as you can only do in Southern California, for his Easter egg hunt, it was at a swimming pool. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of kids, and they would age group them together. So I could see all the kids who were in his age group, and I noticed that in the younger groups, the kids were all mostly very slim and very active. But in his age group, I noticed that weight was more increasingly an issue. And that greatly concerned me, and I thought, oh my goodness, what if one of these times he doesn't shoot up after one of these spurts where he's a bottomless pit? So great advice.
Well, it's
really
just because stress increases for our kids as they get older. They have so many pressures on them, both academic and otherwise. And so the more stress they have, the more they are going to reward themselves with food.
Okay.
And that's really that's the main habit to break, is just, food is supposed to be nutrition and sustenance. It's not reward. And that's so important. I know.
That's a mental shift for me. Okay. But great advice of explaining it to them, because I don't think it was explained to me. And we had Julie Matthews with us last week, and it was 2 weeks ago, I guess now, she brought a different food pyramid than the one that we see online. It was very interesting. We all spent a little time in the office here going over it, going, wow.
Really?
I don't think, and I know if anybody's interested, they can find her food pyramid at nourishinghope.com. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. It was very educational for me, I have to say. Okay, let's continue on to, this was another question that was sent in last week, kind of a devastating thing. My son is 3 years old, nonverbal and autistic. Over the weekend, we had some pretty significant changes happen within our household. The first one, his sister and 3-day-a-week caretaker moved away rather unexpectedly. The second thing is that his father was asked to leave and is no longer living at the house, leaving it just the mom and the child in the house. I have had to scramble to find arrangements for him while I continue to work full-time to provide for us and stay in our home, as well as figure out how to get him to and from school, as I do not trust school buses. I'm happy to say that with the help of my amazing family and friends, we have a new schedule for my son starting this week, but my question is this: what can I do to help ease my son into his new routine? He and his sister had an amazing bond, and I know not seeing her is going to affect him. I also know that not seeing his father all that often is going to affect him as well. How can I help my son to make these changes not so traumatizing for him?
Wow.
It's a lot to have happen in a very short period of time.
It's a lot, yeah. I feel really bad for this mom. She's going through a lot, clearly. Well, okay, so the answer to that is kids, especially that young, just adjust. They adjust to things. So you don't really have to worry about acclimating him to the changes per se, but I would just say you need to be aware of the fact that this is going to be a period of time for him where he will not feel as safe, so he'll have more anxiety, and that's where you can make some change, or contribute to making sure his anxieties are lessened. So don't worry about him acclimating to not being around sister or dad. That'll just automatically happen. To make it more comfortable, just try to give him things that reduce his anxiety, which means obviously spending time with people he knows, family members or you, doing a little bit extra things that he really likes to do, maybe watching the movies that he likes or whatever it is, just increase the rewards during this time frame. Just keeping him engaged, just things that will naturally help him feel safer, more content, more confident. And if you can do that for a period of time, then he'll, within a week or two, he'll adjust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kids are so resilient. It's amazing.
They really are resilient. And we never have to really worry about their adjustment to new things. It's just taking care of them and making sure they're not anxious during that time, because I'm sure that for this child, it's a bit of a change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Great advice. We have somebody just wrote in on the live feature. By the way, somebody wrote in and reported about the food issue, that it's everybody in our country, which
I agree with that.
I agree too, that it's certainly pervasive. But someone else has said, hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My child, 6, is pulling down her pants and panties in front of her classmate and laughs hysterically. She does it every time she can. I believe this all started once her pants were loose and fell down, and we reacted surprise and fastly pulled them up. Now she thinks this is a game. She does it at school only, never at home, not in the streets, but I need a functional replacement. I love that you guys are using this term now, to stop this. She has an 8 at school. Any advice? Thank you.
Yeah. So that's actually terrific. Let's analyze that one together.
Okay.
So it only happens at school, and I would have to assume that it only happens in front of the other kids. So if that's the case, we could make the jump that the function of this is attention seeking from the friends, and she's not differentiating. Our kids at some point don't understand the concept of embarrassment; they just see it as attention. So, she's not necessarily differentiating that the kids are making fun of it versus, giving her positive attention. In other words, she's not differentiating between positive and negative attention. So, first of all, if she has an 8 in school, that cycle needs to be broken. So this is called blocking, obviously. So, and since this is a long chain behavior, it's not an instantaneous. Like, the minute that she starts to do this, the aide can very simply stop it.
Okay.
Right? And she can just say, nope, come on, we're going to do something else. And then the aide will be able to pull her and do some incompatible activity. Okay. Something else that occupies her hands so that she can't do this, and so on. So someone has to be on her in order to prevent this from happening. And if you prevent this from happening, that particular behavior will extinguish. Okay. However, since it's an attention-seeking behavior, you have to replace it with a more, appropriate and practical attention-seeking behavior.
Okay.
So she has to have a different way to receive the attention of the friends or the peers. And that I can't really address because I don't know. I just know the age of the child, very young, I think. 6. So really that has to do with perhaps it's even enough if we're able to engage the same kind of reaction from just the teacher. Because you can manipulate the other kids, that's going to be very hard to do. But perhaps on a schedule, the child is scheduled to, let's say, go to the teacher and show something, some object that she or he has created, let's say some aspect of homework, whatever, and the teacher then is surprised and delighted and gives reinforcer, and you do that on a what's called a non-contingent schedule, so you do it periodically during the day. That way the child's receiving more attention for something appropriate, and just not being allowed to do the inappropriate thing. And that's always how you break these habits. So it's like you put the behavior on extinction so that it can't get any kind of reinforcer, but you replace it with something else that has the similar function and gets the reinforcer. Now, I don't know. I may have analyzed the whole thing because I don't know the child. This is all based on the assumption that your child's doing this because what they get out of it is that attention from the peers or from the teacher.
Right.
And if that's the case, then all of that would work.
Is it possible that there'll be a little bit of an extinction burst for a period of time?
Definitely.
That she'll be trying it a little harder?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So normally when we extinguish something, it gets worse before it gets better. But since we're blocking in this case, then, you know, she might make an attempt to do it more frequently, but the aide has to be very good at not allowing it to happen.
And it sounds like what's absolutely key here is making sure that she's got some other appropriate way of seeking attention that's equally as reinforcing to her.
That's right. And you know, once she gets into the habit of finding other things, or we get into the habit of giving her other things that are giving her attention for, then you can do those frequently, and you can do those, like you block the behavior, and then you can engage her in something that's going to get her appropriate attention at that time.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of finding the thing that she's able to do that's more appropriate, that will get a reaction from people.
I have to say that the more I learn about ABA, the more I think of it as a creative art.
Yeah.
Because it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's everything is different, and you have to think outside the box, and it becomes like a logic problem in your head of, okay, how can... And I'm so glad that they asked this question, because a lot of the time when our kids are having difficulty in schools, not all the time, but a lot of the time, there is that attention component that they get from the other kids.
Oh, definitely.
And that's hard, because you can't, as you said, you can try to manipulate the other kids, but you really can't control that many children.
That's right.
And their reactions.
That's right. And you know, it's just difficult for our children. At some point, like at some point of functioning, we do teach our kids to differentiate between like people laughing at them and why is that something they don't want to do.
Right.
You know, we start to go into that whole realm of you know, you don't want to do this because other kids won't want to be your friend.
Yeah.
Just when our child is able to understand the whole concept of friendship and, you know, why they wouldn't want to be. But I don't know with this child where we're at. So the easiest way to get rid of any behavior is just to kind of put it on extinction or block it, and then at the same time replace it. And it's because it only happens at school, and the beginning of the email, I think that the mom wrote that it's happening in front of the other kids.
Yeah.
I really think it's maintained by their surprise element or something like that. And you know, since it started, I think, at home with everyone kind of being shocked, then you could really try to give her that surprise or, you know, wow or whatever with some other behavior. You just need to bring that into the game.
But I have to say again, two things that I love from this question that came from this parent. One, that you started to put together, okay, what was happening before? What reaction could it possibly have been?
Definitely an ABA mom.
And that more and more we're getting people asking, I need a functional replacement behavior. I just love that. Very exciting to me personally. Wonderful. And they further wrote it and said, what word or phrase can we use when stopping this so we don't sound so negative? When they're blocking, is there a word or phrase that they might use? Or is it better to say nothing?
Exactly. I'm so wonderful that follow-up question, because that really shows how much this person understands of ABA. I love that.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to even address it, because saying some sort of word or phrase that's a negative kind of word or phrase in itself is attention giving. So no, you don't. You physically block it and you move on. You just don't. You prevent it from happening and you just move on.
Okay.
And then, you know, to help, I suppose you can practice this is kind of called overcorrection. So overcorrection is you're sort of practicing the reverse of this behavior in another lesson. So you can practice the whole dressing thing or pulling up pants, closing belt, closing button, that sort of thing. If you're also right now teaching dressing skills.
Okay.
But you know what, Shannon? It's amazing. It just occurred to me as you and I were talking about how this mom really gets the language and understands what she's looking for, which is fabulous. It just occurred to me that this, these are the strange influences, I suppose, of the increasing numbers of autism, and if you look at how many families are now affected by autism, and even if we can only get to a small percentage of the families, look at the knowledge and understanding that moms, I guess for our kids, we learn everything. We do anything that we have to do for our children. And so, the fact that our kids would have something like autism, and then so many parents learn the language and the techniques of behavioral intervention, that has a huge effect just on society going forward. If you learn how to change other people's behavior, if you learn how to understand other people's behavior from these paradigms, behavioral paradigms, it's going to have a very positive effect on just the universe, people as a whole.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. There's certainly a lot of strife that comes with autism, but whenever there are benefits, I like to look at them and acknowledge them and say, all right, well, if this is where we are, then here are some benefits that come with it, right?
Absolutely. Once you learn all this stuff, you yourself I'm sure would agree, you don't look at Jem's behaviors the same way. It's not like you look at a behavior occurs and you don't think, oh, this is a bad behavior I have to punish. It's completely out of your paradigm now. It's more about, why is he doing this? Okay, this is probably what's maintaining this behavior, and this is how I have to deal with it, right?
Yes.
And just imagine if those principles apply to our daily lives.
Yes.
Right? So someone cuts you off and honks their horn or whatever, and you think, probably this person is doing this because in the past they've done it and they've gotten rewarded by it, or they're late, right? And we start to look at things in life a little bit differently as a whole.
And it's interesting that our son is at the point now where he understands enough that we can use some of these terms with him. We got a dog.
Yeah.
And the dog's behavior, because she was a rescue dog and she came from I don't know what, bad circumstances. And we've had to do a lot of behavioral therapy with a dog behaviorist with her.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, Jem would say, the dog's being bad. And we started talking about, no, it's her behavior. She's not bad. She's engaging in behavior. She's trying to tell you something.
Right.
And so now he's started to talk in those terms too. And we also talk with him because he's trying to teach her tricks, and he keeps waiting too long to give the reinforcer. And I keep saying to him, if you don't give it right away, she's not going to link it up that's what it was for.
Right.
It's very interesting to be on the flip teaching him how to do those things.
That's awesome, yeah.
But kind of a related question that somebody has asked. They want to know how to generalize the skills learned from ABA session to the daily real world in a timely manner. Is it good to introduce many play dates opportunities to seek potential future friendships? So how do we all generalize these things that we learn to the real world?
That's right. And I think it's a natural process, and I think this parent is asking kind of, one of the things we do is right after we work on teaching play activities or any social activities, we do actually ask the parents to try to invite peers over so that we can help generalize those things to normal life. And for this parent, what you'll see is that even though you thought you predicted stuff, a lot of things happen in the general environment that we're not prepared for. And when you see your child play, let's say you've practiced a particular play routine, and then you have peers there, things will go completely different than you expected. And that's great. That's not something to be disappointed in, because it allows you to list all the potential things that you didn't deal with, oh yeah, what if there are two friends and they both prefer to play with each other, and then my child gets left out? Okay, well, this is an opportunity to then teach your child, A, how to engage with a group, B, how to not feel depressed about being left out for a few minutes, all those types of things, So, we have a very specific protocol, and I'm trying to, just address this parent's issues. The way that we integrate, specific skills, we just generalize across people, across times, across environments. But social skills that go to a peer, that are intended for the child with peers, we will generally work on a specific skill with the child one-on-one, so one adult to the child. Then we will actually bring one other child into the scenario, practice it with the two children so that the adult can be taken out, and then we will perhaps introduce a group of kids, or then introduce it in school. So there's kind of a step-by-step thing. You want to do it gradually so children can generalize. But the truth is, all these things that we learn in behavioral intervention are completely part of what we do on a daily basis.
And I have to say, for my part, one of the things that I noticed about CARD is that you guys talk about generalization on day one. When you're adding a new skill in, you have already planned for how you're going to generalize that skill before you initiate the lesson.
Oh, yeah.
And I took that kind of for granted. Generalization got talked about on a daily basis. And again, anytime something was added, how are we going to generalize this? It wasn't an afterthought. And I kind of took that for granted as, oh, that's an ABA thing,
right,
that everybody does that, until I would sit and talk with other moms, and they would talk about doing something in the home. And also, I will say that our CARD team pushed and prodded and cajoled and manipulated me, and would say to me, you know, we have to go to the grocery store today because we're working on something, and we need to generalize it. We need a play date today.
Yeah.
I would be reluctant because I was still locked in my fear of, what if he misbehaves? What if we have the tantrum? What if I can't deal with it?
Right.
You know, I mentally was in that place, and you guys did not allow me to stop my child from generalizing.
No, that's terrific, and I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because it's so important, and if you don't do that, the child sort of learns a series of things that aren't useful, and then they'll drop those things off. They just won't maintain them. So without generalization, behaviors won't maintain.
Yeah.
Because they're useless. So, you know, you learn anything you learn, and if it's not applicable, that's why the very first thing we try to teach is requesting, manding, because that's the number one useful thing to a child, is to be able to get their needs met. And so, you know, everything you teach, it's important to make it functional and useful right away.
And is it something where if a parent has an ABA program and they're not hearing the word generalization, that they should ask and say, how are we planning for generalization?
They should be extremely alarmed if they're not hearing the word generalization. Okay. Generalization, acquisition, generalization, maintenance are part of everything you do in ABA.
Okay, so if it's not happening, this would be a big red flag.
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. And this is interesting because we've had this question a couple of different ways in the last couple of days, so I'm glad that somebody asked this. My question is, how do I get to be a BCBA? Not going to college because of two things. My city college, Appleton, Wisconsin, don't have a program for BCBA. What do you guys know about online program without taking SAT or CAT? And we've had many people writing in the last couple of days saying, okay, I've heard you use this expression, BCBA, thinking about going and doing this. How do I do it, and how long does it take, and is it worthwhile to do?
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. There are some universities online programs that allow you to do this without the SAT or ACT, for instance. I think Florida Institute of Technology is one of them, FIT, and they're a good program. Okay. There's a number of online programs. I think St. Cloud has an online program. I'm not sure what the other ones are, but I know there's several. And people have to realize it's a master's level program. So it doesn't really matter what your bachelor's is in, because right now the BACB is not differentiating that, but it is a pretty heavy commitment for about 2 to 3 years after that. And so after your bachelor's, you apply, and then you're taking courses, and then in addition to these and the courses are generally, they're not about autism, they're about behavioral principles, right? And so what happens after that is you also have to do you have to take an exam, and before you can take the exam, you have to do what's called mentorship or supervision, and that's a pretty lengthy period. I'm not sure what the hours are right now because mine is so old. I've had it for a while, but I think it's something like 750 hours or something, and those are hours where you're actually working in the field. Now, not necessarily with autism. It could be in an organizational setting, and you're working with increasing the efficiency of employees, whatever. It's the application of behavioral principles, but there's someone supervising you, and that person is a BCBA. So that person would then have contact with you on a weekly basis and go over your hours of work and so on, and then you have to pass an examination. And as I said, it's a pretty stringent series of requirements. They are also continuously adding to them. There's a lower level credential called the BCABA, which is Board Certified Associate Behavior Analyst. And that's a bachelor's level. That still does require some coursework and hours, but it's a lower level. And I think the BACB is coming out with a technician credential as well, which is yet the newest lowest level, which is for undergraduate level people. I don't know when that's actually going to be out. Probably pretty soon, like within the next few months. And so it is completely possible. Now, is it worthwhile? I guess that depends on what you want it for.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a very good career. There's a lot of people who are coming into this field because it provides them a very good career. It's very high paid right now because there's a huge demand for BCBAs. I'm not sure that it'll remain this way for the next 10 years, but it might.
But it appears there's a certain amount of job security if you are a BCBA at this point in time, that there are plenty of jobs.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we hire a lot of BCBAs, and yes, we put them through pretty intensive training for about 4 to 6 months, which is very, very, I guess, high cost for us as a company. But we do it because we find that our BCBAs have a very good understanding of basic principles, but they're young people and they haven't always had a chance to apply to kids with autism and some of our own stuff, card stuff, you know, we have to teach them. So that takes a while, and we do a massive practicum period for them, with them. And so they get their we can also get people pre-exam BCBAs and just give them their supervision.
Right.
But having said that, yeah, I guess we are more hesitant to, like, we really work hard on training our BCBA folks because their credential is valuable, meaningful. It allows access to insurance coverage and those types of things.
Absolutely amazing. And so I hope that you'll further check that out if that's something you're
and anyone who wants more information on that should go on the BACB website.
Yes,
Behavior
absolutely.
Analysis Certification Board, BACB.org, I think.
Okay. We should let you take a break. I always forget to give you a break.
Sure.
We're going to take a break. You know that we're less than a week away from my shaving my head on Monday for our Compassion in Action. We're encouraging all of you to participate in our Compassion in Action. It can be any action that you want to take to do something nice for someone else, and we've continued to make little promos. So take a look at one of the new promos that we've done for Monday's head shaving and encouraging you to participate. We'll be right back after these messages. This is really happening. Well, the baldness part anyway. On April 8th on Autism Live, I will be shaving my head. Why? To show compassion for a young dad with cancer, for Compassion in Action. What's Compassion in Action? It's a movement. Being thoughtful and taking one single action to show compassion. This is mine. What's yours? Share it with us on facebook.com/autismlive or upload it to YouTube and send us the link at autismlive@gmail.com. Welcome back to Autism Live. I hope you will join us on Monday. We'll be starting right at the top of the show with the head shaving, and all throughout the month of April, we are looking to showcase your acts of compassion. So please participate. Let us know what you're doing. If you belong to a group or an organization that is doing something special, we would really like to cover it here on the show. But right now, we're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh and getting answers to a great many questions, which is very wonderful. And I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
So we have more questions that have come in on the Facebook this week. Somebody wanted to know who to go to when nothing works medicine-wise for PMS/autism 10-year-old. Does anyone know who is leading in research to help with this? Very interesting that they have said that it's both PMS and autism for a 10-year-old. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, oh gosh, so you're looking for like an endocrinologist who also has specialization in autism, which is very hard to find. I guess a lot of the MAPS physicians, they have different specialties, right? Mm-hmm. And then they come in and get trained for autism. A very dear friend of mine who's an immunologist in Louisiana, Dr. Jane Eldar, she, I think, is probably the person I would go to and ask about this situation. I don't know any... there are, of course, people who, OBGYNs and so on, who can also address hormonal issues within autism. But, yeah, I think your best bet is still trying to find someone who is trained specifically either by MAPS or was a previous DAN physician, and they would be able to help a little bit more. It is tough. I would say you separate the two issues and deal with them as they are. Autism is what it is, and you have to reduce challenging behaviors. PMS will contribute to anything, like the rest of us, and you perhaps want to treat it with medications like Midol and so on, and just help the child function, and keep in mind that it's a few days before a certain period of time every month.
Right.
That's going to be tough for them.
Devastating to start that as early as 10.
It's a tough one, yeah.
And I do want to say, too, because we talk from time to time about physicians, and you'll bring up physicians, and you might think to yourself, well, I live in New Jersey, so how am I going to get to this doctor? But a lot of times at the conventions, you can check and see which doctors are going to be there. And I know a lot of parents who go to the conventions specifically to have an opportunity to talk to the doctor. You can talk to the doctor beforehand and say, I'm going to be at the convention. Can I have an opportunity to meet with you?
Right.
There's much more access to these doctors than I think people realize.
Absolutely. And a lot of them actually have time. So I don't know where this family is, but if you're in the, let's say, south, then I would try to contact Dr. Eldar. If you're in the north, or like Chicago area, maybe Dr. Anju Usman is a favorite of mine. There's several in California, several on the East Coast as well. So there used to be a very good list of these physicians on the ARI website. I'm not sure if it's still there, but MAPS now might have their own list, because MAPS is just an additional sort of credentialing process that started.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned that we had someone from South Africa on yesterday that was a previous ARI DAN doctor and is now about to get certified in MAPS. So if you missed that interview, it was fascinating, because she is a mom in South Africa and getting her MAPS certification. Okay, so another question that came in on Facebook this week: 20-something, high-functioning but not independent adult with autism. A lot of info for young adults with Asperger's, but I never see anything for adults that didn't quite get to recovery. Forgotten group. There have been more and more people talking about this, tweens, that they're somewhere in between. They're high functioning, but they haven't recovered. And that what do you do with that group?
Yeah, I don't want to say that they're the forgotten group, because I know a lot of them, and we work with a lot of them, and that's kind of my favorite group, actually, because, well, it's not, I say that about all my groups. I love my kids, it doesn't matter. But, I do love working with the very higher functioning teenagers and, going into adulthood. Because their issues are usually just more cognitive issues. They're more psychological than behavioral issues, and it's kind of like trying to work with them and teach them to, it's just like normal stuff almost, social, understanding other people, understanding, being able to handle situations where they fail, being able to control your own anxieties and depression, and those types of issues. And I would say, for this parent, it really would be beneficial to enter the skills website and go to the high-level executive functioning, social skills, and cognitive lessons. You might not even have to actually use skills, but I'm just saying that's a really good resource, because some of the higher level stuff that's listed in there will really help you, like being able to understand infer information from what you see, being able to understand other people's perspectives. I kind of feel like if you get a child to be able to see other people's perspectives and Also, to be able to like make those leaps between inferences, they generally start to pick up on everything else in their social environment. Yeah. Having said that, this is also the group that's the most prone to anxiety and depression, because they are aware enough to suffer, I suppose, from social, deprivation, or like from other people not interacting with them. They're very aware of what goes on around them. And so that's what it becomes very important to help these individuals to gain some sense of, I guess, satisfaction or happiness in their own activities, in their own worlds, and so on. I just got an email from our good friend Nick, and I think that he did an interview with you guys. One of the things that I had wanted Nick to do, and he's very busy right now with college, but one of the things that I had thought of asking him to do was to actually have a series of segments where he talks about some of these difficult social things and how he's processing them. Yeah. And there's others of my kids as well, and perhaps what we should do is maybe have a show where, we're talking with them about some of the lessons they learned after therapy, and some of the struggles with, let's say, relationships. That seems to be a big one. But, we have problems with relationships, too. Sometimes I think my kids, my adult kids, who are really functioning great, and they get into a bind with something, and they're like, this must be having something to do with me. And I'm like, honey, this is what we all go through. Everybody learns the process of relationship games, and all that sort of stuff. So
interesting that you should say that, because I believe that everyone should have to read through the executive functions curriculum of skills, and everyone could benefit from it. Absolutely. Whether you're a parent or you never met anybody on the autism spectrum, it's a benefit to you. And of course, we've talked before on our show about The Story of Luke, this really amazing film that had its Los Angeles premiere last night. And last week, one of the stars of it, Seth Green, was on the Conan O'Brien show. He showed a clip from the movie where one person with autism was explaining to another person with autism, showing them a man and a woman meeting at the water cooler, and he was describing all the things that were going on in the interaction, saying, now look how he makes eye contact with her, but he lowers his eyes after a certain amount of time, so he shows interest but not stalker interest. Look at how she's playing with her hair, and they go through great detail describing all the things that happen in that interaction, because he's saying, this is what you need to learn.
Right.
And they came back from the clip, and Conan's response was, man, did I need you in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because he could have benefited from that lesson.
That's right.
We all could.
That's right.
To have it decoded for us.
Absolutely. I mean, these are the things we learn. Like, so when you're a teenager and let's say you fall in love with someone and they don't respond, or, they're not interested, or whatever it is, and as a teenager you go through this whole phase of like, oh my God, there must be something wrong with me, and then up and down and up and down, and then ultimately at some point in your life, hopefully sooner rather than later, you come to the conclusion that it really had nothing to do with you. And, you need to just be going down your path and doing your own thing, and the right person will come along. All of those things are just lessons of time, right? Otherwise, I mean, our teenagers wouldn't be acting crazy either.
Right. Exactly.
Our teenagers go through everything. We all did.
Yes.
So these are just learning processes that we all have to go through, and I think it's harder for our kids, because sometimes they have to learn the rules that are subtle, unwritten rules. But I mean, and as far as I'm concerned, you could read 500 books on social skills and it won't go into any of this, because this is just much later than social skills. This is very, very abstract little things that we're talking about. And as long as you've taught the child, like, that's why we teach all those basic things, like paying attention to facial expression. We're actually just making a game right now, an iPad, sort of an iTunes library game that has to do with not only recognizing facial expressions, but making them by adding the eyes and the mouth, and so that you can get to see what different parts of your face, how they change for different facial expressions, right? But I mean, you learn those things, they won't necessarily generalize to the real environment, But they will with time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, exciting information. I'm glad to know that you're working. I can't wait to see this app.
Yeah, it sounds great. Cool.
Okay, another question. This is a very interesting one. My child has terrible skin rashes. Is that related to autism?
Mm-hmm. It could be. You need to. Well, I mean, I don't want to say it could be related to autism. You know, scientifically, nothing is related to autism. So, although we know that a lot of our kids have lots of different medical issues. Yeah. So what might be happening with your child is yeast, fungal problems, and you should definitely have the skin rashes checked out. Now, here's the thing: if you go to a dermatologist, most likely they will just call it eczema and then give you creams or something, but which will kill the reaction, so you won't necessarily see it. So the rash should get better with things like cortisone, but that doesn't mean that you're dealing with what's causing it. What's causing it is very important, so you need to get allergy testing and rule out things that your child might be reacting to as an allergy, and then you also need to get blood testing or urine testing to look at organic acids. That would be a urine test. You need to figure out if your child has high levels of yeast, candida infection, and that is important because that does result in a rash. Yeah. It's like, what is it called? Ringworm, for instance, is a fungal rash. And so your body is reacting and you're kind of detoxifying or have high levels of yeast. And that can be treated with an antifungal medication, with some dietary changes, but it is very important. And at intake, I'll ask the parents, you know, did your child have, even all the way back to kids who have a high amount of diaper rash, for instance, or another indication is thrush, you know, and when your tongue gets yellow from white, and that's yeast as well. Or later on, a lot of people will get those types of infections. So it is important to deal with it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. Another great question that came in last week on the Facebook. I was wondering if you have any information for siblings of autistic children. They say that their child is only 4, and we want to make sure we do the right thing when explaining about his older brother's condition. Thank you so much.
Well, if the older brother is 4, is that right?
I think we don't know how old the older brother on the spectrum is, but the younger brother is 4, and it sounds like they're wanting to language it in some way for the 4-year-old to understand that his older brother is different.
I would, right now I wouldn't label it as anything severe. Thank God so many kids now know the word autism, at least, or are aware of some of the things that go with autism. I wouldn't really go into too much detail. I would just say he has some problems learning language, or he has some problems giving eye contact, or whatever the symptoms are in the older sibling right now, because the older sibling will most likely change. Yeah. And as the older sibling is changing, I understand that probably the family at this point wants the younger sibling to have some understanding, because so that they would be less frustrated, perhaps, because perhaps I'm guessing that the younger sibling might be trying to interact. The older sibling isn't reciprocating. So you would want to explain that, no, this isn't, he's not doing it on purpose. He just has a hard time hearing stuff that you're saying, so I would take the specific scenarios that might be causing the younger sibling some distress and explain them better. Awesome. But I wouldn't necessarily go into giving a specific label. Okay. Another reason you might be wanting to give a label is if other kids have said the label and then the younger sibling's wondering, what does that mean? Yeah. And if that happens, again, I would explain, okay, this means he has a hard time with learning to speak, he has a hard time with making friends, he has a hard time really kind of paying attention to all the stuff that's around him. And then I would leave it at that for now, because the very young children have a hard time understanding these things anyway.
Yeah. Holly Robinson Peete has a book out, too, with her daughter that she wrote that's called My Brother Charlie. Right. It's from the point of view, it's a very young reader book that from the point of view of a girl who finds out that her twin brother. Awesome. And I don't know, I can't remember, and I'm sorry to say I can't remember whether they actually use the word autism, but it's about the sister dealing with the fact that sometimes her brother brother is different and that other kids react to him in a different way. That might maybe be an innocuous way to, read that with a child and not necessarily have a discussion about it, but they could potentially even ask questions. Are you into that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, and I don't know of the book. But it's awesome if there are books out there like that, because I often am very concerned for siblings. I mean, it's hard enough if you have multiple children in a family, to make sure everybody gets equal coverage, you know? But when you have a child with autism, you necessarily have to give that child so much attention. And then I often find that our siblings turn out to be, the best, just unbelievably patient, giving people, but at the same time, they kind of are forced to grow up a little too fast. It's kind of like they have to take on responsibility, and then I worry about them because later in life that might show up for them. So, it's just important for parents, as overwhelmed as we all are, to try to make sure that you have your time alone with the siblings and spend time with the sibling as well.
And I have to, since you brought that up, I have to give a shout out to, we talk sometimes about the Autism Research Group here, and they have a program that they've been working on called Connection, and it's just for siblings. Things for them to do to get together with other siblings that have nothing to do with, other than the fact that they all share that in common, but they're not having to take care of their siblings. They're, fun, like bowling dates or things that they go. And I know there's one here in Los Angeles, and they're looking at starting some other groups. You can find out more information about that by going to autismresearchgroup.org. So great Connection. There's a tab under resources for it. It is an awesome thing. Okay, here is a loaded question. I don't know why when we get to the end I always ask you the ones that really you could spend a month on. Why do some kids get a lot better and other kids only get a little better?
Oh, gosh, that is a loaded question, and I could talk for a while. How much time do I have? About 4 minutes?
4 minutes.
So I think there's a number of elements that contribute to how our kids end up doing. Obviously, the kids start out at different levels of functioning. So and I think that has more to do with the time that they were affected by whatever started to produce the symptoms of autism. So, how I always look at autism is that there's the genetic predisposition, which really more and more means nothing. But some environmental factor triggers the symptoms of autism when it sort of interacts with the genetic predisposition. And if that environmental factor, the earlier that happens, I guess the more the severity of autism is what I'm saying. So like if you are receiving toxicity from mom while in utero, then it's likely that you will have more delays in development than if you're exposed at the age of 3. If you're exposed to some very serious toxic elements that your body can't get rid of twice in your life, then you're more severe than if it was once. Those types of things. So the severity level obviously plays a part in it. And not all of the kids just actually are able to come out of it completely just because there are too many things going on. And I find that when a child has problems in regulating, like in receiving information, both visually and auditorily. And I've talked about this a lot, where I feel like our kids have a hard time with how they see things, their perception of objects, and also some of the actual core visual things like tracking and binocularity and so on. But they also have issues with how they hear things. And as you know, a lot of our kids say they hear the sound of language, for instance, is the lowest sound, and it's the hardest one to pick up on, and so on. So if you have a combination of receiving information auditorily and visually, and both are impaired, then it's the hardest for those children to learn, because they're having a hard time learning. How else are they receive information? So the sensory problems, I suppose, impact how you do overall. The age at which you start has a huge impact. Like, let's say if you start at age 2, you have much more time to learn all the things that you didn't learn than if you start at age 5.
Right.
The intensity of doing ABAs, so this is one of the things I really get upset about, is when A high-functioning child at age 2, someone misleads the family and says, just do 10 hours, and that's just such a wasted time. So my belief system is you hit it early, you hit it intensively, and that gives your child the best chance. Now, that's on the behavioral. On everything else, obviously, no matter what age your child is, you need to be looking at any medical symptoms that are not that are detrimental to normal functioning. So whether the child is not eating properly, is allergic to half the food they're eating, is sensitive, has rashes, let's say has major gastrointestinal problems, diarrhea, constipation, just bloating, is not sleeping, all of those things need to be dealt with and cannot be ignored.
Right.
They need to be fixed as much as possible so that the child's physiology is good. And so if you're dealing with the medical stuff, if you're doing the appropriate interventions and you're doing intensive behavioral intervention, then you have the best possible chance of overcoming your symptoms if you have a good behavioral program. If you, let's say, ignore some of the medical stuff, if you do minimal hours, if you do poor quality behavioral intervention, if you start very late, if you don't address the sensory needs of the child, then all of those things will have a negative impact on how your child does. Having said that, I'm not sure that I would say the majority by far of my children who do everything the way they're supposed to do it do benefit and do come very close to completely overcoming.
Right.
But it's a lot of elements to keep control over. And then finally, the other thing is that you really do need a pretty dedicated family. Parents have to be very much on board and recognize that this is a couple of years of pretty hard work, and bringing all of those things together is tough.
It absolutely.
Yeah.
I hear that and I feel overwhelmed.
Exactly.
And yet, and we didn't do it perfectly. There are still things that we need to do, and yet we've had such tremendous progress. And even after we've gone through it, I hear all that and I go, oh, there's so much to be done. But I would remind everybody that you start in one place, you prioritize, and you figure out, okay, this is what I need to do today,
right? Or
this is what I need to do in this hour,
right? And
you get the ball rolling and things happen. And
absolutely.
And I think for sure, aligning yourself with really quality ABA, and if possible, having it be the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, because there were times when I would have missed other things, but you guys pushed me and didn't let me retreat into the hole that I wanted to go into as a person.
I mean, it is tough though, Shannon. I mean, and as I just went through the list, it gave me some other ideas, but it really is a lot of different variables, and being able to make sure that all these variables interact with each other perfectly for your child is really, really hard.
Yeah, it is. So don't think you can do it on your own.
Yeah, and don't ever waste any time feeling bad about it or guilty about it. I know a lot of parents do, and we all do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the truth is, all you can do is your best.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I remind myself on a daily basis is the time that you spend beating yourself up over what didn't happen yesterday is another period of time that you could have been making it happen today.
It's a negative period of time for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy for you. To be experiencing those.
Well, that's a whole other show.
Right.
That is a whole other show.
It is.
Absolutely, because of for parents dealing with all the negative feelings about whether you're getting it done.
Right.
Because there's so much to do. I don't know a single parent who feels like they can or did get it all done.
Right.
And there is that thing sometimes that parents don't want to talk to other parents because they're like, oh, they're one of those parents that's getting it done and I'm not. I have guilt about that, so I'm not going to ask the question that could help my child.
Right.
It's we could talk about all that, and we will another time. But we have to let you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Always.
It always is a kick in the pants for me. I want to run out the door and do 85 things. So it's very exciting.
Thank you,
and we had a bunch of questions come in at the end. We'll make sure and have those for you next week. And we're going to take a break, and we'll come back for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Our very special guest today will be Ariva Martin from the Special Needs Network. They're getting ready for their Tools for Transformation conference a week from this week. Very amazing event, so we'll be having her talk with us via Skype. As we go to break, we want you to take a look at this week's The A Word. This is an amazing, ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following one little boy and his family as they make the foray into making the difference, stepping up, getting all these things together, getting this child healthy, getting that intensive ABA in their home. It's not easy, and we see this family struggling from time to time, but they are getting it done. So take a look. This is The A Word.
Come here. No, really. Come here. Trust me this time. I won't throw you. No, really, come here. Trust me this time. I won't throw you. No, really, this time trust me.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Woo! If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Yeah, if you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Stomp your feet. Say hooray. Yay! Good job, come here. So we just taught that song to him last week. Or I did. Daddy, he's outside. Who's upside down? Who's upside down? Who's upside down? Touch your head. Touch your ears. I got you again. Oh, you're so easy. Touch your nose. Touch your eyes. Got you again.
Today, Jack Riley is really playful, but isn't interested in playing with any of his toys. He's more interested in social games. So what Jessica does is integrate his lessons in the play, such as body parts.
Touch your head. What's your name? Good. How old are you? 2. Good job. What sound does a lion make? Roar. 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 What sound does a bear make? Grr, grr, grr. What sound does a Jack Riley make? That's a hard one. I want to see if you'd make up something. Jack Riley. I want to see if you'd make something up. What's up, dude? Nice hands? Do you want me to play? You want me to play? Play? Okay, I'll play. You just have to ask. Hey, Suzanne, can I try something? Yeah. Can I try having him get your attention? I want to see if he'll actually generalize. Okay. Okay, Suzanne's going to be in charge of the pillow sandwiches now. If you want them, you need to ask her. Look. Look. Do you want a pillow sandwich? Oh, look at the pillows. Who has the pillows? Yes? Okay.
Okay, pause.
Okay, we're gonna wait.
Nice waiting. Nice waiting.
That's better.
Good job.
Good job.
Nice waiting.
All right, perfect. Good
Okay.
job.
Nice waiting, buddy.
That's much better.
I have a crush on my son. okay? We'll watch them later. We'll watch them later. No, we'll watch it later. No. Jack, settle down. Settle down. We'll watch computer later. It's not going anywhere.
Jack Riley is upset because the fun activity, to him, has abruptly stopped. Transitioning is anxiety-ridden for Jack Riley because he has difficulty in anticipating what will happen next. In general, though, transitioning for kids is abstract and difficult to grasp.
Hey, should we go jump a little bit somewhere? What do you want to do? Should we play upwards? Daddy. Should we go see Daddy? Daddy. Ready? Just kidding. Should we go? Should we go? Should we go?
Jack Riley quickly gets over being upset once a new fun activity occurs. He now sees that there are other fun things to do. The issue was that he doesn't know that he will have access to something fun again, but by practicing transitioning, he will eventually learn that just because the activity ends, it's not gone forever.
Now I know my ABCs. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? That was Master P. Diddy White Ice Dude. That's who did that.
Wow, is that gonna be your stage name, Jack Riley?
When you grow up, don't be a tool.
Oh man, Vanilla Ice. Wow, that brought me back to when I was a little girl. Very cool.
I love you, Jack Riley. I love you, Jack Riley.
Hi everyone, welcome back. It's April, which means it's also spring. And what we're going to be doing today is making our very own chia pets. What's cool about this project, it's an activity that you can revisit with your family as you watch it grow and change. All right, now that I piqued your interest, let's get to it. The materials we'll be needing are water, dirt, arts and craft materials, chia seeds, a container, and nylon. So let's get started. It's super easy. All you're going to do is you're going to take an old pair of nylons that you have, you're going to cut off the toe, and what you're going to do is you're going to take some of your chia seeds and sprinkle them at the very bottom. We don't need too much, just a little bit. And then once I've got my chia seeds there, I'm going to take my dirt and pour that in. And we want to make sure that we've got quite a bit in there. You want to keep this tail. What this does is acts as a way to soak up the water to feed your little chia plant. So I'm going to take the bottom now. I'm going to tie this into a knot. So now that I've got this little guy, now it's time to decorate him. And you can decorate him however you feel like. What I did is that I made some little features out of felt that I'm going to add to my little guy to give him a face. Now that I've got them all decorated, I'm going to pour some water into my container and make sure my tail is all nice and soaked up in there. And here's my little buddy. I made a mouse, but you can always make whatever kind of creature your child finds super reinforcing. Make sure they like the little animal that you make so they'll want to come back and revisit him. As you can see right now, he's a little ball, but hopefully, keeping your fingers crossed, in a week he'll have some hair. With the snap of my fingers, we're going to go through a week in a few seconds. And oh my gosh, this little guy has changed quite a bit. Can you see how? Yeah, he's got some hair now. You can have your kids describe how this little guy looks to their friends, and you can even work on body parts by having them label all the features that this little guy has on his face. So let's see, what does he have? He's got eyes, a nose, a mouth, and ears. What do you think will happen to him if I stop watering him? Yeah, he probably won't be growing any more hair if I did that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity. I know I did. Tune in next time, okay? And until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
Yeah, and I'm, about a half an hour ago, I had ice on my eyes from my spring allergies, and then I got a wonderful tip. A tomato, cut it in two, put it on your eyes. It was miraculous. I still am swollen. I see it I can see the swelling. But
you know what it is? It looks like you had work done. You look good.
It looks like I had work done?
It
Great.
Looks like you had work
all right.
Done. You look good.
All right.
So
with these bags under my eyes?
No, your upper eye looks great.
Oh, well, I don't know. People probably think I had an eye job or something. But no, I did not have an eye job.
I just had allergies.
It's allergies. So.
But maybe all the lycopene in the tomato,
it helped because they were shut about an hour ago completely.
Very well. You look great.
All right. Well, thank you, Shannon.
And we have this new desk, a new configuration here.
I should have worn blue today.
Well,
but that was yesterday.
Was all
okay, I did wear blue yesterday.
I'm just
and even my
going.
son's school, which I was so happy to see, put out an email that all the children to wear blue shirts.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I know.
Jem's on spring break, so they always
I've had it for the last 2 weeks. Everybody's got it different times.
Yes. But so thrilled to have you here today. And we've got a lot of different things to cover and a very special guest that will be have joining us via Skype in a little while. Of course, we're talking about Ariva Martin from the Special Needs Network.
And she's got her big conference coming up, Special Needs Conference, Tools to Transformation, and her legislative breakfast.
Very cool.
Yeah.
But some stuff happening in the news, and I kind of wanted to start with, if you've been on Facebook in the last 24 hours, you probably have seen this. A gentleman, Lou Melgarejo, I hope I said that correctly.
That looks like it. The right spelling.
Has a blog. And on his blog, he posted an open letter to Comcast CEO Brian Roberts and NBCU CEO Steve Burke.
NBC Universal.
And
Comcast owns NBC Universal now.
It is an amazing letter saying that he absolutely loves his job, that he does work for Comcast, and it's a dream job for him, and that he's not looking to lose his job, and that he has previously requested and asked for a format to talk about the fact that the company does not include in their medical benefits ABA for children with autism. He is a dad of a young daughter, and
Bianca, who was diagnosed at 4.
And he gives this beautifully written letter that I may steal for my own purposes.
I think everybody should steal it and send it to their employers if they do not get coverage.
Yes, and it really is a very polite, here's what you need to know, here's why you need to include it in your coverage, here's why it's important for your company, here's why it's important for me as one of your employees, here's why it's important for my daughter, she deserves it. I encourage you to check out the letter. It is on Facebook. I'm sharing it on my personal page, and we will share it on our Autism Live page. But what was particularly moving about this to me was the PS, and it's all very polite and well done, but he signs it, his name, and says, PS, I really do love my job and my coworkers. Please don't fire me. Now
to even think that he would have to put that. I don't know if Mr. Melgarejo knows that Bob Wright used to be CEO or chairman of NBC Universal, and Bob and Suzanne Wright started Autism Speaks.
Right.
So he has a powerful ally there.
Yes.
That he should reach out to in possibly talking to Brian Roberts and Steve Burke about this.
Well, I would imagine that he's aware of it. Lou has received awards in the past from Autism Speaks. He's been a very outspoken advocate and is involved with Autism Speaks. So I imagine he's aware of it.
Right. Well, I imagine Bob Wright, though, has a little bit of influence there. So perhaps he can help.
Hope so. And I want to thank Mr. Melgarejo.
Yeah.
I believe that's it.
Melgarejo, I think. Melgarejo.
Okay. You say it much better than I do, as always. But because this letter to me was also a wake-up call about the fact that we all need to be heard.
We do.
And if you haven't had the opportunity, and if you don't have insurance, and if you're being left out of insurance, even if it's happening in your state, I think irregardless, if you do not have insurance and you are employed and have some sort of health insurance, you could send this letter to your employer and say, are you aware? And you wouldn't have to spend the time or put together the facts.
Use it as a template and insert your own child's situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank this gentleman for the service that he did for all of us to bring this to light. And I hope that I certainly shared it this morning. And if you would like to share it as well, it's all over Facebook. It is on my personal Facebook, and we'll get it up on our Autism Live Facebook as well.
Okay, great.
Amazing.
And I'm going to post a blog about it.
Fabulous.
So I just want to say, too, I announced this last week, that my son just started receiving insurance coverage for his ABA. We had been paying privately for an aide to go to his school with him. We had to leave the public school system because they would not let us provide the kind of aid we needed for him, a non-public school aid. And we received word at the beginning of this year that we would have our insurance cover it. And we just received word that it's been extended through October. And let me tell you, that is the best news my family has had in some time.
Absolutely.
And it was such a gift for us.
Yeah.
And it has been his progression this year with having an ABA therapist accompany him to school has been nothing short of miraculous. So I can't stress enough how important this is for employers.
Yeah, absolutely. And to hear it from you, I mean, what a difference it makes in your day-to-day life.
Oh, it does.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you brought this to my attention this morning. I think I had been avoiding it.
Yeah.
There is a news story, and we know that in this month of April, Autism Awareness Month, that there are going to be a lot of news stories covering research that they sort of pile it on in this month. So you want to take the lead on this and tell us what this is about?
I will take the lead on it and say that the CDC says there is no evidence that multiple vaccines raise autism risk, and that the number of childhood vaccines administered in neither a single day or during the first 2 years of life has no bearing on autism risk. New research from the CDC shows. Now, this was a case-controlled study of more than 1,000 children, and from this study, they showed that there was no overall greater risk of ASD or ASD with regression. By the way, it does not say whether they had children in this study that had any sort of immune dysfunction. My son, for one, had a hyperactive immune syndrome. We found that after the fact. And my son is one of the children who was affected by multiple vaccines in a day, because basically his hyperimmune dysfunction, when those vaccines were put into his system, it shut down certain neuropathways of the brain because it saw it as a toxic invader. Yeah. On the converse side, children with low immune fighting systems can also be affected by vaccines. This does not mean that children cannot be affected by vaccines. Right. I urge everybody to go to the vaccine injury. I forgot the entire name of it, the vaccine injury settlement. If you Google vaccine injury, there has been, by the federal government, set up a fund to compensate children who are vaccine injured. And millions of dollars have been paid out to children that have been vaccine injured. So there's another side to this that is not addressed here. Yeah. I'm not saying that their study isn't correct. Right. I'm just saying that there is proof in the courts that many children have been injured and autism induced by vaccines. So let's have a balanced picture here.
Yeah. Well, and here's what's significant, if you will, to me in this report. Here's the word that gets me. The case control study of more than 1,000 children showed that there were no significant differences between those who did and those who did not have an autism spectrum disorder in the total antigens from the vaccines received by age 2 years, or in the maximum number of antigens received on a single day. That's what this study did. But notice the word significant, because significant is that's a word that you have to quantify with your own brain. Because if they say, well, 1 in a million children will be, that doesn't seem significant to someone who's a researcher, but if you're the mom of that 1 in a million, it's very significant to you, right? So hard to quantify what significant is.
Yeah.
They're not saying there was no difference. They're saying there was no significant, and that, to me, makes me take a step back and say, well, what is significant to you?
Yeah, exactly.
If it's enough to make one child have autism, to me, that's significant.
Also, I want to say, as a final note, I'm not anti-vaccine. I want to be clear that I believe vaccines are necessary. I believe vaccines, are really important to keep a lot of these diseases from affecting our children. However, I do believe there is a huge section of children out there that most likely should be tested to see if they have any immune dysregularities that might cause the vaccines to trigger autism, because we have proof that this happens.
And I say amen to that, sister.
Okay.
That's where we need to put our energies towards testing our children to see if it's okay for that individual child.
Okay.
You also brought to our attention that they're looking at grandfather's age linked to autism now.
Which is really kind of an interesting, I'm looking for my article here.
I've got one here.
This is very interesting. Older paternal age has been linked to autism in a man's offspring, but now researchers have found that the older a man is when his child is born, the greater the risk for autism in his grandchild.
Interesting.
So, for example, if my husband, we adopted Wyatt, but let's say we had Wyatt when he was 58, an advanced age for a guy to have a child. Had then Wyatt gone on to have children, there would be more of an increased risk for autism in those children, which, this was in the JAMA, the Journal of whatever, Psychiatry, and it was researchers in the Swedish government data, and they studied this data. And they found this. So the majority of children and grandchildren of older dads and granddads develop normally, they caution.
Right.
But our findings are helping us understand how autism may develop.
Well, we're in this category because my husband, his dad was significantly older when he had him.
Right.
And then we were both significantly older when we had Jem. There were other risk factors that we also qualified for too. So, it's like playing with the wheel. Which one of these things furthered this along? But interesting information, and we'll file it under more to know later on.
More to know. And once again, I call on a impartial body of regulators, advocates, activists, researchers to come together. There's been we cover research studies every week, several. Who's going to take all this information, sift through it, determine what, in fact, has higher probabilities, what should be discounted, and put together a little bit more of a comprehensive look at what these multiple causes of autism are so we can come up with a plan. I say it should be something that is led by the White House, and you've got an announcement about the Obama administration.
Yes, but first, before we even talk about that, we talked about last week that the IACC, which is supposed to have some responsibility for reporting to the Health and Human Services Secretary, to make Kathleen Sebelius, and to make recommendations, and that they did last week. They made a recommendation that there be a federal standard for care for insurance, which she has the power to give. We've been asking her to give, right?
Yes.
And this is the commission that was put together to make recommendations to her, and they said unanimously you should do this. And we had contacted the Honorable Secretary's office and asked for a comment, or if she would like to be interviewed on the show to say how she's going to be a leader and take this suggestion and what she's going to do with it. And we can report back that she has declined to comment and has declined to be interviewed.
Okay.
So there we have it.
There we have it.
And if you see this thin layer of smoke that comes up from the top of my head, it's not your imagination.
Okay. So leadership is what we need.
Yes, leadership. And we'll look forward, perhaps it's just that she's not going to share that with us. I would hope that is the case. although, we would be a forum for that, but we'll hope and pray for leadership. Now, on the other side, what we heard from the Obama administration on Monday, they announced that they would be dedicating, funds to further research because they want to map the brain. Now, this isn't just for autism because there are so many other conditions that this will also help with, but they've committed a great deal of money. It's a $100 million project that focuses, it is a great deal of money, focusing on mapping the brain to better understand its function and hopefully one day understand the causes and treatments for certain diseases such as autism. And I would assume that would also help with Alzheimer's and an array of other disorders that affect the brain. So we're thrilled that that amount of research, we want to applaud. Everybody's very excited. It's a step in the right direction. We will hope for more leadership. Let's say that.
And if, in fact, the White House does not step forward, and if, in fact, we don't get some sort of major conference going on this topic, I urge some of the other world leaders, Bill Clinton's doing a lot of great work with the Clinton Global Initiative. Let's take this on. We need a leader to take this on. Bring together a summit, really, of all the scientists, the researchers, the advocates, and it should represent all sides. Absolutely. It should not just be the biomedical movement, just the ABA. It has to be everybody. It has to because when you look at some of the credentials sometimes behind the studies, you find that a lot of people that sit on boards of certain organizations had a connection with a major pharmaceutical company, or perhaps they were a lobbyist for a major pharmaceutical company. I think that would influence the way that you interpreted data.
Just like it interprets the way I view the data, because I've got a child and I'm dealing with it on a regular basis. I think we all have our perspectives, but it's time to move forward.
And bring together everybody from the field, and not play partial to certain segments of it.
Absolutely. I agree completely.
Okay, let's hope it happens.
I hope you're at that table.
Mr. President, please help us, Mr. Obama.
Absolutely.
Obama.
You have the power to do that. All right, we have to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to be joined by Areva Martin. We want to talk about a strong, powerful woman who has the ability to create change. You certainly couldn't have that conversation without mentioning Areva Martin, an amazing woman. So we're going to be talking with her about her Tools for Transformation conference and the legislative breakfast and what might be happening at that. Some really important things that she has going on during the conference. I really want to talk about the bullying summit that she's having.
Yeah, that's a great thing she's putting together.
So stick with us. We'll be back more with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he? What is he doing? Is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy. But, we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT. from ACT.
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received a grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, you know, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back. We're getting Ariva on our Skype, and sometimes, you know, for some of our guests, that Skype can be a little bit
tricky.
Well, yes. It's like all technology. When it works well, and when it doesn't, you know,
it's
then we cross our fingers and hope for the gremlins to go away.
Right.
But we have so much to talk about, not the least of which is we've started a campaign here for the Autism Awareness Month called Compassion in Action. And everybody knows that I'm going to shave my head on Monday, but we've been talking.
I'm going to be here.
Yes, you're going to be here with us, and also Monica Holloway will be here, and Alex Plank will be here, and we might have some other guests. We'll see.
We might. We were trying to get a surprise mystery guest.
Yes, so it could be very fun. But you've been talking a lot about you do things every day. And I think, I kept on saying, but Nancy, you do things all the time. Your life is compassion in action.
Thank you,
But
Shannon.
I know you were wanting to have, something big and important and special. And you do have something big and important and special that you're doing this month.
Right. As most of our viewers know, I do a speech on a journey through autism to empowerment and how we can find really a new strength in this journey with our children and experience the miracle of unconditional love, and which a lot of people never get to learn in this life. You know, if you had the perfect child, it's very easy to say, oh, they're great. But when you have a child with a disability, which I do believe God gives to special people that can handle that challenge, you really learn love on a whole new level, right?
Absolutely.
So I do this speech, done it around the country at several conferences, and I give 10 steps to empowerment, which we've done here on the show, and I have a prayer, for a serenity prayer for autism moms. And if anybody would like that, they can write us because we can give it to them. We should actually put it on the website.
We absolutely should.
So we'll do that.
We've got a new blog, and we'll put it on the blog site and do that. Yes.
But what I wanted to do is extend a feeling of spiritual strength to families, and particularly to moms. So I am putting together a spirituality empowerment service, and I'm making it interdenominational. I'm going to seek a rabbi to assist with it, one of the ministers from my church, Prince of Peace in Woodland Hills, and we're going to put together a service where moms can come, and dads too, parents can come, and they can bring their child. I'm going to get some volunteers, certified behavior therapist, and the children can play in the little family room next door, or they can come into the church. And we're going to do some worship that will, we're going to do prayer and singing and a special blessing. And so stay tuned for that, because it's going to be here in the Valley and in Woodland Hills. And so we'll have more on it. But it's something I felt a calling to do. And I think I've often said, if it weren't for my church and my pastor, Father Rand, and his support of me, and what he did was he shifted my perspective. I remember going and speaking with him once, and he listened, and I was crying, and I said, I just don't know how much more I can take, and because my husband has struggled with cancer for years, and he seems to be going into remission again, which is wonderful. But after the death of both my parents this last year and everything, I went to speak with him, and he looked at me and he said, well, you know what I think you are? I think you're heroic. He said, I think you're a hero. And I think you're really an example of what real love is about. And I left there feeling so inspired, so fortified. And it really shifted. It really shifted what, from, once again, victim to chosen, you know?
It's time to crack out the tissues, folks.
So that's what I'd like to give other, particularly women, but anyone that would want to come, and not just children with autism, but all disabled children. You know, we have, in our church, we have a little girl with cerebral palsy. And I'm telling you, when I see her on our Easter service, her dad got her out of her wheelchair, took her up to flower the cross, and to watch little Theodora get out of that wheelchair and the smile on her face, being up there with the other children. I mean, that's where I find God in others, you know.
Well, I have to tell you, madam, I find you heroic, too. The things that you get done. And let me just say this, too, and I've said this before on the show. Nancy used to be one of those people that I looked at and I went, oh, okay. You know, I'm never going to be, like, able to have a conversation with her because Nancy always looks pulled together. Nancy always is wearing the outfit that looks like it came out of the catalog. And it looks like, you know, it's seamless and she's got her day organized. And, you know, she opens her purse and she never has, like, this array of receipts drop out. No, never in public. And Nancy, you know, just always has it all together, and I don't. Let's just be honest about that. And I exude that.
And now you've learned the truth.
Well, and now I've gotten to know Nancy and know that there is this really real person who is by no means perfect, because I couldn't handle it if you were, but who, beyond all the, you know, how lovely you look, that your heart is huger than this building, and that you would climb mountains to help an individual child that you never even heard about. I've seen you do it. You are heroic. And then you think, well, you know, maybe it's because, you know, she has help and she has support and she has, you know, like fill in the blank, all the things you go, well, she can do it because, and then I find out that that's not true.
No, it's not true.
You know, I think of, and you know, forgive me because I'm going to make this leap, but you know, they always say the thing about we all have the same number of hours a day that Mother Teresa had.
Yes.
And I think about that with you, that you, when I had the realization as an autism mom that you had all the things that I was dealing with and some that I wasn't, that was a big wake up call for me about, okay, I could get more done. really, you have been an inspiration to me for years.
You. And likewise, Shannon, I think what you do is miraculous in the service of doing this show every day.
Well, I thank you,
this
but
is
I
like
sit
a love
here.
Fest. We're in love.
But I sit here, and you go out and you do things.
Well, thank you.
And it is a constant.
It's a privilege, and it also makes me feel so grateful to help families less fortunate. So
well, and I see you do that. I have seen you in those moments and just been in awe. So I think that your minister is right, that you are heroic. And I also have to say too, as we talk about this compassion in action coming up, and when I first announced to people that I wanted to shave my head to support a young dad with cancer, there were some people who asked questions and said, I don't get it. You do a show about autism, you talk about autism, you're an autism mom, why are you shaving your head for a young man with cancer? And my response was, because autism doesn't happen in a vacuum.
No, it doesn't.
That, look at you, that you have been dealing with
cancer.
Yes.
And, some families have multiple struggles going on. We never know what goes on behind closed doors. I've learned never to envy because envy, a lot of the people that we think have it all together really don't. Let's face it. And you've learned that about me. I don't have it all together.
Right. And I know, I don't know about everybody else, but I know when autism came to live at our house, I went through some denial, and then I moved into acceptance and thought, okay, well, if this is what we're dealing with, then we're going to hunker down and we're going to work. But there was an idea in the back of my head that, okay, but that means we're done. We don't get visited by anything else. This is our story. This is our cross to bear, and nothing else can happen to us. We're impervious. Like, it excused us from everything else. And then shortly afterward, when our landlord died and he'd been taking our rent and not paying the mortgage, and so they were foreclosing and kicking us out. And I remember having this outrage of how that's not fair. Don't they know we're already dealing with autism?
Yeah, but they don't.
And they don't. And it opened my eyes to and at the same time that I was thinking that, there was a mom who was on my support group that she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she had 2 children on the autism spectrum who were under the age of 5. And I had that moment of, okay, having autism does not make you impervious to everything else. And no matter how bad you think you have it, somebody else has it worse.
Always. Yeah, we have to keep it in perspective, be grateful for the gifts we have.
Absolutely.
And learn to, face those challenges, and through your disability is your opportunity.
Absolutely.
To learn what a strong person you can be, and to possibly find a whole new calling in life. So.
Absolutely. And through that, the manifestation of that this month is that we're asking everybody to show compassion to somebody else.
Show compassion.
Be small or large, but
pay it forward.
Pay it forward in whatever way you can. You'll feel better. They'll feel better. And if we all do it, what a world we could live in, right? What an amazing thing. We should take another break. And then when we come back, you've got an important event that's coming up this weekend that I'm going to be attending.
Today, for military families, run, walk, and One Hope Wine Festival. That's the thought part. You and I are going to... Do you drink wine? Really?
I don't. I don't.
How can you not drink wine?
Because that's a whole other story, but I'm allergic to the things in it, so I can't. It's not even an option for me.
Okay. I wonder if that made my allergies worse last night, the histamines. I had a glass of wine, but I can't give up my red wine or my coffee.
Well, there are good things in it, too. There's the tannins in it, but I can't do the sulfites.
Well, we have a lot of things, so when we come back, we can talk things for the whole family.
And if we get the opportunity to talk to Ariva, but she's had some technical difficulties on her end, so we'll see.
Okay.
All right, so stick with us.
This is the second annual ACT Run for autism and military families. We're down here in San Diego. It's absolutely gorgeous morning.
All right, let's just start moving. Let's move those feet. I know it's a little chilly. Some of you are just arriving. Hey, you guys are looking at it. I want to remind you, you are running to raise money for an amazing cause. Our military families with a child of autism. You guys are heroes. Thank you.
So are you ready to run? Go! Someone who's had a lot of friends who've had children with autism, and I'll tell you, there is nothing more heartfelt than watching the support that this organization provides for families and for militaries and for children. Whoa! Look at this little silver bullet on the side. He's going to win it. Oh, my gosh. Tackle him.
Way to throw down a killer personal best, of course, on your Act Today 10K. So look at that. That is a serious commitment to no limits racing.
You know, a lot of times you hear things about autism, you're hearing about people trying to find a cure, but what happens to the people who are living with it daily with their children? And Act Today supports them with grants and funding for a helmet, for example. They say in the lifetime of a child with autism, you can probably expect to spend about $3 million. So Act Today helps out with those things.
1 in 88 military families have autism. That's entirely too much. We have an autism epidemic. It's almost impossible for families to get the care and treatment they need, particularly the military family, who moves on average every 2 years. Oftentimes they have a parent deployed. Their children do not get the care and treatment they deserve.
I hope all of you guys enjoyed running today. We're extremely humbled to get to be the title sponsor of this great event, and it's going to grow every year. We started off as a small company with a big vision, and a few years later now we've donated over $750,000 thanks to generous support and generous marketing from our charitable partners.
All right, here now we go. On 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is international. Beat mega radio smasher. I had the time of my life, and I've never felt this way before. Yes, I swear this is true, and I owe it all to you. Oh, I had the time of my life, and I never felt this way before, and I swear this is true, and I owe it all to you. Rock, light a fire, make it hot. I don't wanna take no pictures, I just wanna make it hot. I was going to get wild, that's my side.
The fact that you have the band going, you have friends here, you have just a great atmosphere, why not come out? And you're in Southern California. You can't get better.
I want you to know you made a difference today in the lives of families with children with autism. You guys are amazing. You're activists. You guys rock. Bye, everybody. See you next year.
This event would not be possible if we hadn't had the tremendous support of sponsors.
We encourage everybody, join us next year. The party's going to be bigger and better than ever. We are back with Let's Talk Autism.
And we're very sorry that we're not able to be joined by Ariva, but we're going to see if we can get together with her next week and maybe have her in the studio. So our apologies that we're not able, we cannot overcome the technical difficulties on her end at this time, and she sends her apologies as well. But hopefully we'll be able to have her back next week.
Hopefully.
But we just saw a wonderful video about this. I'm so excited because I've never been able to attend before.
Oh, is this going to be your first time?
This is my first time coming to your huge walk. It's happening on Saturday.
Run, walk. It's a 10K, 5K fun walk. And it is a festival. It is the Act Today for military families, Run, Walk, and One Hope Wine Festival.
Right.
And we are going to have so many great things to do there. It's at Tecolote Shores in San Diego, right near SeaWorld.
Okay.
And so basically, it's a beautiful area with water and beautiful grounds. And Center for Autism and Related Disorders is sponsoring a kids zone, which will have all kinds of activities, jumpy houses and games, but there's also a quiet zone. And they're going to have behavioral analysts, ABA certified helpers there.
Which is amazing. When you stop and think about it, how often do you want to go to an event and there are parts of it that you want to enjoy with your child and parts of it that you'd like to let your child play, but you can't.
But you
ever.
can, and you can't talk to other parents.
Right.
Yeah.
And in this instance, I love the fact that they sponsor and that they bring therapists so you can leave your child there and check them in.
And you can come over to the One Hope Wine Tent and Stone Brewery Beer Garden and have a glass of wine or a little mug of beer and have your kid play and feel safe and just
which is no small thing. That's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah, so that's great. And the run is great. We get a lot of military. Obviously, this is to benefit military families with children with autism, and we get a lot of Marines. We get a lot of Navy, Army, Coast Guard. They're all there.
Yes, the phrase that was told to me was that there's a lot of eye candy.
There's a lot of eye candy because you got these Marines and these servicemen and women are in awesome shape, and they're out there in their running clothes, and you're like, okay, wine, beer, Jersey Mike subs, my kid can be in the fun zone, and hunky Marines.
Yes.
What more do you want?
Really.
And NBC,
and raising money for an amazing cause.
Right. And Mark Christopher Lawrence from the show Chuck that was on NBC, he's one of our big supporters, funny guy. He's going to be there, and Jason and Marianne from KNSD, our NBC the NBC affiliate there. They're our media partner.
Yeah.
They're going to be there. It's just a great day. I would love for any of you in the area, any of you in Southern California to come on out. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to talk with you.
And I will be there.
And Shannon, you're going to be interviewing.
I'm going to be interviewing people. So if you want to come and I'll interview you, absolutely, we'd love to do that. And we should also mention, we brought it up last week, but if people around the world are watching this and they say, okay, I'd like to participate, you've heard about how important it is that we support our military families.
Yes.
And you'd like to do something to fundraise, you have the virtual
We
run.
have the virtual run. And by the way, Center for Autism and Related Disorders, they rock because, they've got like 4 different offices around the country that are competing, and they're raising a lot of money for us.
I love that.
So, so you can go on act-today.org.
Yes.
Or Act Today for militaryfamilies.org, either one. You will see a button to go to the run, and you'll see how you can do virtual fundraising, which is really fun.
Awesome.
And I believe we have a whole platoon somewhere overseas doing a virtual run, or they're going to run while we run.
Right.
So that's going to be really fun.
Oh, very
exciting. It's one of the most joyous days of the year for me. So I hope everyone can participate in some way.
And I'm thrilled to be there and for the first time.
I'm so excited
you're
coming.
Element. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a hike for us, but we're excited to make the journey.
I drove down on Monday to do an interview on the NBC station, and I drove, 3.5 hours, did a 5-minute interview, got in the car, and drove right back. So
this is what I talk about with you're determined. But an amazing event. And we should note, too, that this is the big fundraiser
for the military family campaign we have, which raises treatment that goes directly to the families. This does not go to research.
Right.
This does not go to advertising and promotion. This does not go to office furniture.
Right.
This goes to grants for kids.
We had a guest. You weren't here last week, but we had a guest who was here, and I was giving them a tour of the building, and I said, and we have to stop off and see the Act Today office because you won't believe it. You literally won't believe it. And they were. I think they thought I was going to show them this like posh. And it's basically a broom closet with 3 folding chairs.
With 3 folding chairs. Things, grant applications piled to the ceiling.
Yes.
And my dearest Amy Zhang, who is, the rock of Act Today, she's our administrative and marketing assistant.
I'm pretty sure she'll be canonized at some point in her life.
She'll be canonized at some point in her life because literally she's glued to that computer and she talks to so many families. And we're actually in the process right now, Shannon, our grant cycle, the first quarter grant cycle just ended. And I have huge news.
Yes, tell me.
We have passed the $1 million mark in grants given to families.
Oh, that's
that just happened. We're putting a press release out.
I would have had confetti.
I know. So, or champagne for me. Confetti for you, champagne for me.
There we go.
But we passed it. So over $1 million given directly to families. And I just want to say how important it is when I get on the phone when I call a family we were able to give a grant to, and I hear these moms and dads and the gratitude. I mean, a lot of times it's sobbing.
Yeah.
I get a lot of, hi, this is Nancy Alsbot Jackson from Act Today, and I wanted to call you and let you know your grant has been approved. And I mean, most of the times it's, oh my God, and crying and tears, and you don't know what this means to us.
Yeah.
So, and then there are the more difficult calls that we didn't have enough funds to approve your grant.
Yeah.
So we keep going. You know, the marathon is a marathon.
Yeah.
And it's going to go on a long time.
And now, when is the next open grant phase? Is that next month?
It's going to be the spring grant opening, and I will announce when the actual applications will be taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're getting here towards the end of the show, so I want to make sure that everybody knows, and Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us, because there are lots of different ways to watch the show, lots of different ways to get a hold of us. And Nancy and I are always looking for topics that you guys would like to see covered.
Always.
If there's a person that you'd love to see us interview, we're always very interested in that. I have been remiss while we have been talking. I have not been checking to see if people have been asking questions because we had so much stuff covering the desk.
We should do like a Q&A day, maybe. Take some of the, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That would be good.
But always feel free to email us or Facebook us or tweet at us.
We are accessible.
Yes.
24/7, 365.
Absolutely. And we are very excited for the opportunity to talk to you, because you're part of our family.
Yeah,
you're part of our community.
We're family now.
Yes,
you know, we were brought
absolutely.
together by the A word,
right?
And we want to be your support system.
Yes, absolutely.
And happy to offer
as somebody said to me, welcome to the club that nobody ever chose to belong to, but once you get here, you find that there's some pretty amazing people and some pretty miraculous things that happen.
That's right.
So we're all part of that same club. And I have to say to you that
your piece in.
You amaze me on a daily basis. And
I had enough already.
What a privilege it is, though, for me to get to spend this time with you.
Well, I love hanging out with you. And I love it. Sometimes we'll get emails from you guys, and it'll say, hey, girlfriends.
Yes, girlfriends.
We are your girlfriends.
We
you know?
appreciate that. we keep saying we're going to do a makeover. We should have a makeover over for a viewer. We keep saying we're going to do that for like Mother's Day. So maybe that's something to talk about.
Why don't we do that?
All right.
Because I've got some hairdressers. I used to go to a lot of these ritzy hairdressers. I don't do it anymore. I do my own.
We're out of time. But in any case, we're not live again until the day of shaving the head. So come back, and she's going to be here on Monday. So join us on Monday, shaving the head. And we can't wait to hear about what you're going to do for Acts of Compassion.
Yeah, pay it
Bye-bye
forward.
for now. Give your kiddos a hug from me.
And stay positive.
Yes.